to the max. Spokesman David Spady is joining us this morning. There's a machine to explain their campaign. You're going up and down the state with this big machine, and today you're going to be in Old Town.
We are. We're glad to be down here to talk about everybody's favorite subject, taxes. As you know, California is facing another massive budget deficit, $15 billion. We're hearing from special interests and from a majority of the politicians in Sacramento that the answer to deal with this huge gap is another huge tax increase. We're saying no. The problem is not a revenue problem, it's a spending problem. It's time for Sacramento to get its house in order and do like we do as families and individuals and businesses. When we don't have the money that we had at one time, we have to go and make sometimes tough choices, but we certainly can eliminate anything that's a non-essential and cut those things when we have slower times, and then when we have better times, we can have those luxuries.
So you're taking this ATM machine to 20 different cities across the state to say what? What's the significance of the ATM?
The significance of the ATM is that California taxpayers should not be viewed by Sacramento politicians as their personal ATM machine that they go to for withdrawal every time they spend more money than they have. If you look at our state budget over the last decade, it's increased 100%. During that same time frame, California personal income has gone up 66%. So if you held the budget to a same standard like that, we'd have an $88 billion budget, and we'd be looking at a surplus rather than a deficit.
It seems like all we hear about are cuts in police, cuts in fire, cuts in services. Potholes aren't getting repaired. What more can we cut without taxing?
Well, certainly there's a couple different things we can do to increase revenues in the state. One is, of course, selling off surplus lands. California actually owns an island out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, thousands of miles from here. We have 22,000 surplus buildings in the state. So there's some short-term solutions like that to have revenues that we can use in the immediate to deal with this problem. But it's a bigger problem than that. It's a problem on how Sacramento allocates money and how it spends more than it has and does not have a rainy day fund and other things like that like we have as individuals, so that when we do have times like we are facing right now, tougher economic times, we have a way to deal with that.
Give me an example or two of some situations that you know of where maybe money is being wasted.
Well, you can call this wasted. It certainly is a luxury, but in LA Unified School District, for example, the superintendent there has a $30,000 a year speech consultant to help with how he delivers his speeches. Well, I would beg the question, did that person get a layoff notice when teachers were getting layoff notices this last year? Probably not. Those are kind of luxuries that you have. Yeah, when you have more money than you need, that you spend it on that. When you don't spend that kind of money.
David, it seems like it would be political suicide for any politician in California or any other state in America during these economic times right now to even suggest higher taxes. But it's happening.
Yeah, if you look at any poll on this subject that's been taken in California in the last few months, a majority of Californians oppose tax increases. When we're looking at this mortgage crisis, we're looking at gas headed towards $5 a gallon. You couldn't do anything worse to our economy and to the individuals in this state than to burden them with another tax increase. California has the 5th highest tax burden in the country right now, and we don't need to increase that during these times.
So you mentioned the island that we have that's somewhere out there in the Pacific, is it, or where?
Correct, yes.
And then these surplus buildings. How come we never hear anybody talking about these as options?
Well, part of the problem is how that money is spent. For example, when those buildings are sold or lands are sold, it goes into the general fund. If Sacramento would allow those agencies that have those buildings to use that money to offset times like now when they may have a budget shortfall, I think that there would be more interest in selling those. But right now they want to hold on to them because they're not going to see the value of that if it just goes into the general fund. It's spent by another agency.
All right, we have about a week to go before the fiscal year kicks in, the new one, and they've got to determine what the budget is going to be. What do you see happening between now and then?
Well, it appears that we're headed into a stalemate between Republicans and Democrats. Republicans opposing tax increases, and the Democrat leadership right now wanting some kind of a tax increase. We've not seen their budget yet. We will see that next week when the legislature has to produce a budget by the 15th of the month. So we'll see what their solutions are. The governor's proposed some ideas that we applaud because at this point does not involve a tax increase, but we have some very serious concerns also about what it may lead to, especially this ballot measure that suggests a 1% sales tax.
Which we'll be voting on in November?
That we may be voting on in November, correct.
All right. Well, you can see the big ATM machine in Old Town today. It's going to be there for a day. And then you're on to what's the next city?
We're on to Riverside and Palm Springs tomorrow.
Well, thanks for stopping by and giving us information about this very important issue. Taxes is something, the T word, people don't like to hear about, but it's good information.
Glad to be here.
Thanks so much.